ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived at the final step of the flow of food. Okay, we talked about the flow of food being the process in which food flows throughout an operation. First, we purchase and receive, meaning we go and buy the ingredients. When those ingredients are in our restaurant or in our kitchen, we are then storing them. We talked about proper storage. After they have been stored, we are prepping them, we are cooking them, we are cooling them properly if necessary. We're going to come back to reheating after we look at this final step, which is serving the food. So you see how this food has flowed through the operation. It is now ready for the customers to consume. And all the while, we have ensured that every single step along the way, we are serving food safely. There is no contamination. There is no risk for biological, physical, or chemical contamination. The big one that we're looking at is always biological. Okay, chemical, big deal, yes. Physical, big deal, yes. Hair and food, ugh, disgusting. Makes me gag just thinking about it. However, the real reason we are talking about all of this is to avoid foodborne illnesses. So here we are in the final step of the flow of food, that is service. And what we need to know is just because the food is cooked does not mean that we are out of the woods yet. There are still things that we need to do when we are serving our customers to ensure that their food remains safe. So even though it's cooked, we are not finished yet. There is still room for error. Oftentimes foods are made in large quantities, and so because of that, we incorporate risk here. We make large batches, but then we only serve it in small batches, and so we'll talk about how we do so safely. Okay, so general rules for holding food: check the internal temperature of food using a thermometer. I often give the example of if you were to go down to the cafeteria during lunches. If you really start to pay attention to your surroundings towards the end of a lunch period, if you were to look over at the cafeteria staff, they've got their trusty thermometer, and they are reading the internal temperatures of that food. As they go from A lunch to B lunch to C lunch to D lunch, they want to ensure that that food is being kept cold or hot throughout the entirety of all of those lunches. Now, the rule is that food can last within the temperature danger zone for about 4 hours safely. Okay, so after 4 hours, we want to discard that food. If that food has not been fully used, unfortunately, after that 4-hour window, we have to safely we have to discard the food for safety. Okay. So if we are checking the food every 4 hours and we realize it's not at the right temperature, we can't do anything about it. So ServSafe recommends that we check every 2 hours. If we check the food every 2 hours, we realize, oh, this product is not being kept as hot as it should be. Well, I can safely recondition it. I can reheat it again, and I can make that food safe for consumption still. If we check it 4 hours and it's not at the right temperature, our only option is to throw it out. We do not want to waste food. So plan to check food every 2 hours. It leaves that room for corrective action. Holding equipment should not be used to reheat food. I'm gonna show you in just a minute what what I mean by holding equipment. This will make a little bit more sense shortly. Cover food and install sneeze guards to protect food from becoming contaminated. Again, take yourself to the cafeteria. You've seen one for years when you've gone to the lunchroom for food, and there is that glass that is in front. It is keeping you away from the food that people are going to be choosing from. There's sneeze guards, all of that, just to protect the food from any biological or physical contaminants at this time. All right, so holding hot foods. Okay, we're talking about hot food here. So our general rule of thumb is we want, if that hot food is out being served to you, we want it to be kept at 135 degrees or higher. okay? Higher is totally appropriate as long as it's out of the temperature danger zone. Only use hot holding equipment that can keep food at the proper temperature. If that piece of equipment is not functioning properly and not able to keep the food hot, you need to either get it fixed or change equipment, okay? It has to be able to keep our food hot. It is recommended that you stir the food often. That way, what is on the bottom, which is usually going to be the hotter place, or on the outsides is normally hotter. You mix that with the inside just to redistribute that heat, okay? So let's look at a couple of pieces of equipment that keep our hot foods hot. This is a steam table, okay? So if I were to pick up any of these, what we call hotel pans, if I were to pick up these hotel pans, underneath them is going to be hot water. That hot water creates steam, that steam keeps these pans hot. This is what I mean. Every so often, we want to stir this because what's on the outside of those pans is going to be the hottest area. What's on the inside gets a little bit cooler, and so you stir to redistribute the heat. So here is a steam table. Its purpose is to keep hot foods hot. If you've been to a buffet before, maybe you've been to an event where things have been catered, you may see what we call chafing dishes. Chafing dishes. They're meant to keep hot foods hot. So on the bottom, you have sterno. That sterno is lit. It's a little flame. And then in this pan down here, you have water. The sterno heats the water creates steam, the steam keeps all of that hot food hot. Okay, chafing dishes for hot holding. You've got what we call steam cabinets or a holding cabinet. If you really pay attention to your surroundings in the cafeteria, they've already cooked all the food for lunches. They're not cooking it to order for you, unfortunately. But instead, they've got all of that food ready. When they run out of a food, they go to this hot holding cabinet. They get out more of the whatever ran out that's being kept hot already. Okay, hot holding cabinet. All right, holding cold foods. We don't just hold hot foods, we hold cold foods as well. Just like we want to keep everything out of the temperature danger zone, your cold food is kept at a temperature of 41 degrees or below. If we can do it below 41, that's going to be ideal, okay? And of course, we only want to use equipment that is going to keep our cold foods cold. It needs to be effective in terms of equipment, okay? So let's look at a couple of pieces of equipment that are used to keep our cold foods cold. Okay, you've gone into the cafeteria before, you've seen something like this. It's holding all of your cold drinks. It's a refrigerated item. Or refrigerated equipment here, keeping your cold food cold. Maybe you've gone into a gas station before and you've seen, or Starbucks is another good example. You walk into Starbucks or a gas station, you see units like this. They're holding your sandwiches with deli meat in them. They've got salads, they've got drinks, they've got any variety of products. It's keeping your cold foods cold at 41 degrees or below. Here you've got a salad bar. This isn't exactly a refrigerator, if you will, but all of your foods are being stored on ice. That way it's being kept as cold as possible. Remember, you want to stir this often. If you've got the option to stir this, what's on the outsides and on the bottom of this bowl is going to stay the coldest. What's in the center starts to get a little bit warmer, and so you want to stir often to redistribute that coolness, okay? I'm going to skip over this information, and we'll come back to that in Culinary 1. Serving food safely. We want to make sure that we also have people who are serving food. Our servers in our restaurants that are bringing us our food, they run the risk of getting your food contaminated as well. So there's things that they need to do to ensure the safe delivery of your food. So kitchen staff are using cleaned and sanitized equipment always. Store serving utensils properly. That means that our handles are facing out, meaning I never have to touch the surface that is going to touch the food, okay? So if I've got a serving spoon, that handle is up, The spoon area is down, so when I pick it up, I go and pick with the handle, not with the actual serving area itself. We want to minimize, if at all, we want to not have bare hand contact at all. We should always have gloves on when dealing with ready-to-eat food, and just in general practice good personal hygiene. Ladies and gentlemen, United States is just well ahead of food safety and sanitation rules. My husband and I, before we were married, we traveled to Europe. It was the first time I'd been abroad except for England. We went to Amsterdam in the Netherlands, we went to Germany, and then we ended in Austria. And I remember I was a culinary teacher at the time, and you just realize that the same rules do not apply. So we are doing everything to the extreme. There's extreme precautions being taken here in America. So I remember sitting down to breakfast. We were in Germany now, and I remember them setting out this breakfast. They were bringing out pastries and fruits, and they had granola and yogurt and all this beautiful assortments of meats and cheeses, all of this ready-to-eat food, and not a single person had gloves on. And I remember thinking to myself, oh my gosh, that's disgusting. That would never be okay in America. And it's not, but my philosophy is we're talking about a lot of these things, and a lot of you are probably rolling your eyes. Oh my gosh, you mean I have to have gloves on every single time I touch ready-to-eat foods? If you've not died yet, you're probably just okay. If you've never experienced a foodborne illness, you are doing just fine. A lot of these rules are just extreme precaution, and we will follow them here in culinary, but realize they're not always the same in different places. In regards to other rules that servers can be aware of, glassware and dishes should be handled properly. Glassware and dishes should not be stacked. Flatware and utensils should be held at the handle. That's kind of what I mentioned a second ago. Minimize that bare hand contact with ready-to-eat food. Use ice scoops or tongs to get ice, not our hands. And then practicing good personal hygiene is always a must, especially if we are hoping to avoid any biological contaminants. Preset tableware. When you go into a restaurant, you're going to notice oftentimes they have the preset tableware already in napkins. Sometimes it's already on your table. Sometimes the hostess will grab the appropriate amount of servingware before they go to the table. So if this is already set on the table, maybe you've walked into a restaurant before, the dining room is just very nicely set up and organized, and there's a table for 6 people set up. You've got 6 things of preset tableware there, but there's only 5 of you that are dining that evening. You'll often see that hostess is going to remove that silverware. Why? Because they do not want, if they don't remove it, they can't reuse it. Because who's to say that as a guest, you don't unravel that, pull out the fork, lick that fork, put it back in, roll it back up, and leave it on the table. Oh, but it's still wrapped. It still has to be good. No. They're still running the risk of contamination at this time. So if you see the hostess, they either remove it if it's already set out, or they are only taking as much silverware as your party needs to the table when you first enter a restaurant. Okay. Some foods can be reserved, some foods cannot. Menu items returned by the customer. So if you say, this hamburger has cheese on it, and I'm allergic to dairy, so I can't have this, and that hamburger gets returned, unfortunately, that hamburger can't go and feed somebody else. They're like, oh, we gotta save money. That hamburger cannot become somebody else's meal. If it was sitting in front of a person, unwrapped, it cannot be used for another person at all. Never reserve plate garnishes such as fruit or pickles. Any uncovered condiments, so that salsa cannot be reused, or uneaten bread rolls. So I'm always really aware of this. If a restaurant comes around and the server says, hey, do you want more bread? I always think, do I really need more bread? Because if they bring us 4 more rolls and we only eat 1, that ends up being 3 that are wasted. So I always err on the side of caution and just say no so that they don't end up wasting any food. All right, self-service areas, those are areas with the buffet where you are getting your own food. Much of those same rules apply. Hot food is hot, cold food is cold, handles are out so that you can grab the utensil to serve it properly. If there is raw meat out, then it is kept very, very separate from any ready-to-eat food. But here is the big one that I want you to consider. You have to get a new plate every single time, okay? Every single time you get a new plate. Because if you go up with an old plate and you go to the mashed potatoes, which have a tendency to stick on the spoon, right? And you take your old plate that you've been eating off of and your saliva and the fork have already touched it, you go back up with your old plate, you get some more mashed potatoes and you go tap, tap, tap. Now your saliva is on that serving spoon. So that's why at a buffet they're going to have you grab a new plate every single time. Okay. All right, that takes us through the information. Some of that other stuff we will look at in Culinary 1, so I'm not going to talk about serving anymore. I know I flew through that pretty quickly because we're seeing a lot of repeated themes. Hot food, hot, cold food, cold. Personal hygiene is important, and clean and sanitize equipment is important as well. So you're seeing those themes just reoccurring over and over and over. I hope that you took notes for that. I'm going to wrap up for the day, and I will see you later. Bye.